What's going on, guys? I'm back again with another Procreate time lapse. And you know, these two pieces here are kind of like, I wanted to create a web comic, so I was trying to create a style for the comic. So these were like style tests, but I kind of like them individually. So I've done a few more like this that I'll post at a later date. But anyway, so these are what I'd like to call the Dark Lords, right? Very inspired by, like, you know, your Saurons, your Skeletors, all these kind of characters, these kind of Dark Lords, kind of like they're just evil, you know, they're just these evil characters, you know what I'm trying to say. You know, they don't really, the second one's in a mask, so he's kind of like, you know, he maybe the Darth Vader inspired as well, you know, these kind of characters that are just like looking over the world and they just hate the world. They hate the idea of the world itself. They look at the land, they look at, you know, simple things like the mud and the stones, and they think, I want it gone, I want it destroyed. I either want it destroyed or I want it all to be on fire, and I want all my minions to be lurking all the time. I don't want there to be any kind of pleasantry in the world. And that's how I kind of see these types of characters. You know, you can either do them like that, they're kind of these ultimate evil dictators, kind of like a dark side, or they just hate the world and they just want to destroy it all. For whatever reason, they just hate it, you know. So, you know, when starting these pieces, I started with shapes on the first one. So the one you're seeing now, I started with shapes because I just wanted to do some stuff with a lot of black. And then it kind of evolved into something else throughout the process of just, you know, me just deciding to create like something in this pose. The reality was, I just said I wanted to do a character from the back as well, and it just evolved into what it is, and then it kind of evolved into the style I kind of want for my whole webcomic. So that's interesting, you know. And my other idea was to try and have the webcomic literally be always in orange for whatever reason, you know. Just I kind of wanted to always use those kind of reddy oranges and yellows, and just that was it, and black, you know, and maybe some grey. I know that sounds like a lot, but that was the idea. I don't think it's feasible, but it's the idea I've got, and I'll post a few more from the webcomic series, so you kind of be able to get what I'm trying to get at, you know, with this whole thing. But enough about the pieces, you know what I'm trying to say, because it's very simple. They're style tests, you know. Let's just talk about, you know, when you're trying to create something in general. I think it's important when you're trying to create, you know, like a webcomic or an IP. An IP is an intellectual property, anything like that. It's important to go through the design ring or try and figure out how you're going to make this thing look aesthetically. You know, that's why people have like art directors, you know, at companies, because they need a direction for how this thing's going to look. So, you know, in the end, it's always good to be a doer and trying to just get on with something straight out of the box, but it's always better to have like at least some semblance of a plan, so going forward you can kind of make better decisions. So as I said, it was really just me trying to have a solid idea of how I'm going to draw this webcomic, because I was thinking about webtoons. Obviously, I think that's the biggest webcomic platform, and I was just thinking, well, I need to be able to create something that I can consistently create, not something that's going to take me, you know, 2 hours for the pencils, 2 hours for the inking, 2 hours for the coloring per page. I need it to be half an hour each page or something like that. I need it to be that kind of a turnaround time. So I need to bring in all the tricks that I learned in Photoshop, all the kind of brush techniques I learned throughout the years, bring them into Procreate and make it work for me, you know. And that was why I kind of came up with the style of trying to start with just these big bold shapes and trying to kind of like establish my characters with these shapes. And I feel like it worked. I feel like I did a good job of it, but I just also feel like, you know, will I be able to sustain it? You know, I think I can, but it's just a thought, you know. Will I forget to do a certain thing? Because I added little specks, I added a lot of little things to kind of give it a little bit of spice, a little bit of flavor. If you know, let's talk about cooking. Let's use the cooking analogy. You know, if you forget the spice, more often than not, people are going to say your food bland. So if I forget to do one of the spices, probably people are going to be like, what was going on with that page? That page wasn't proper, you know. But I hope I don't anyway, you know. And I always try and do things to a good standard, regardless. I always try and take things to a standard where I think, yeah, that's presentable. So hopefully going forward it looks good. But yeah, so that was, you know, that was the idea, you know, and these characters aren't right now, they're not canon, they don't have any lore or anything, they're literally just drawings. Normally when I do a character, I really sit around and think about a storyline. That's just how my mind works. It don't even matter what character it is. It could be a girl sat in a meadow, and I'll start having these thoughts like, oh, she's in a meadow and she lives in a dystopian future, and you know, it's not often she gets to sit in the field, and she goes out there because it's the last field that she's ever been able to find, and all these crazy things. And that just came off the dome, by the way, but that's what I'm trying to say. So I don't really have anything for these characters. They were literally style tested to me. That's literally how I looked at them, and it's rare that I look at any of my artwork like that, because I don't really believe in wasting time. I think if you're gonna do art, and I'm a storyteller, you know, at heart, so I feel like if I'm gonna do art, I'm gonna have a story to tell, and I'm gonna try and make these things go towards my own kind of personal universe that I'm building. But these guys aren't, so you know, maybe they will get added in later and they'll be given names and everything. I don't even know what the Dark Lord guy looks like from the front, so you know. But anyway, on to the next one. So the next one is, you know, it's like he's like the armored kind of tank boss character, you know, seemingly has energy powers, you know, and he's this big tank, you know, who seems like, you know, he's definitely, if the guy before is the last boss, you know, let's say the guy before is the very final boss, right? You know, you get to him after you beat the guy that I'm drawing now. You get to him after you beat the big tank guy, because the big tank guy is guarding the entrance, you know, or they're both just big bosses. But let's say the big tank guy is guarding the entrance and he's the stronger one in terms of raw power, but then the secondary one knows dark magic and all this kind of stuff, you know. But the funny thing is, this tank one looks like he knows some kind of magic, because his hands have got all this kind of, he's got all this glowy stuff going on, you know, and stuff like that, and he's got the cool horns. So you know, maybe magic's just a thing that you can do in this realm. Maybe all these characters can do magic, but either way, I wouldn't say this guy's the final boss. He could be around. He seems more like the final boss, because he's got the scepter and stuff, and he just seems more angry because he doesn't have a mask on, and we can see how angry he is. But yeah, on another note, I've always thought that, you know, like video games were kind of a better storytelling medium than a lot of films. Now, films are fantastic, but the difference is video games are interactive and they're longer. So a lot of the time you get these really long films, you know, in terms, you know, in the disguise as a video game, you know, these super linear video games like The Last of Us, for example, really long film. But basically, you know, the story can be delivered in a multitude of different ways though, but it still gets delivered. The only reason I mention this is because I'm thinking about these characters in a video game scenario, and that's how I think about a lot of my stuff. I think, well, you know, what if there was two boss characters, and you know, and a lot of the time this, you know, the dynamic is similar in a lot of different things, but for me, it's always about, if it was a video game, how would it play out? How would these characters interact? Which one would be the boss? Which one would be the sub boss? You know, which one would be stronger? Which one would be harder to beat? You know, because in the Dark Souls games, the last boss isn't always the hardest for whatever reason. You know, sometimes the first boss is the hardest, and everything else is like a come down from that. But you know, that's kind of where my mind goes in these situations. You know, so as I said, me personally, I don't have any ideas for these characters, but I think everyone should do these kinds of exercises. You know, as I was saying originally, if you're gonna make a webcomic, anything like that, you know, any project you want to make, if you want to make a clothing brand, if you want to make, you know, some kind of a concept art book, you're gonna have to go through and figure out what style you want to convey it in, and try and stick to that style, because it will give you cohesion. You know, I've seen people on Instagram blow from just having a very cohesive feed. You know, the art's not always top notch, it's like very average, but the feed is so cohesive, the colors all work together. You know, it's incredible what you can do with a little bit of consistency, and also it builds a little bit of discipline, you know, to stay in one place and not jump around and be erratic. You know, but on that note, we're up to the end of this video. You know, I did enjoy these processes, and I know in these videos I say you know a lot because I do these freestyled without any kind of like script. But yeah, I enjoyed the process of creating these two. You know, it was fun. I learned some stuff from it and I got a good style out of it. Thank you for watching. See you guys in the next one. Peace.